Senate's going to be picking up the debate after recess on the continued concern over the cost of that proposal. And joining us right now to debate this is Sharon Parrott, president of the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. Russell Vought is also here, former OMB director under President Trump. I want to thank both of you. Sharon, I'm going to start with you. What do you think the true cost of this is? And let's try to have as honest a conversation as we can. The administration thinks this is actually costless. The CBO doesn't agree, and Russ clearly doesn't agree.
Look, CBO has said that the bill is very nearly paid for under their scoring mechanisms over the next 10 years. There is a debate about exactly how much the tax gap, the difference between taxes owed and taxes actually paid, will come down as a result of increased enforcement. The difference is actually quite small. And under CBO scoring, the bill is most certainly paid for over probably 11 years. Under Treasury scoring, the bill is paid for over 10 years. And even under CBO scoring, the difference is a minuscule 0.1% of GDP. So well within the margin of error of scoring. So, we can debate sort of these finer points of scoring, or we can talk about the really important provisions that are in this bill and what those provisions will do for the American people.
Russ, I believe that you think not only is this not free, but this is going to cost trillions.
I do. This is going to be a $5 trillion bill. Those on the outside who have looked at this that are not governed by the requirements of what CBO has to do, which is to look at the four corners of a legislation, say this is between $4.6 and $5 trillion. Look, the reason why this looks artificially low right now is because there are sunsets in the bill as if these policies are going to go away in 1-3 years. This bill increases the deficit in the first 5 years by upwards of $800 billion, and there's an expectation that the political class is somehow going to sunset these new entitlements and these new government expansions, and we just know that never happens.
Sharon, what do you make of the idea that this is a Trojan horse? That, sure, maybe your math looks right at the outset here, but it won't look right if you continue some of these programs after 3 or 4 years.
Let's be really clear what the bill does. The bill makes a set of investments, and the policymakers that are supporting this bill have a set of offsets, and they committed to paying for the bill. There are things that sunset. I would note that the lion's share of individual tax cuts in the 2017 tax law also sunset, but there was no attempt to pay for that bill. This bill, policymakers did pay for it. When those programs expire, policymakers in the country will have a choice. Are those policies working for the American people? What are their costs? What are their benefits? And should they be continued? And should they be offset? But what this bill does is say, here's a set of investments. Here's a set of ways to pay for them. Some of them are temporary. And when they are expired, when they come up for expiration, the question will be, do policymakers and the public think that they are worthy of being extended? But those same policymakers that demanded these programs be offset this time can very well decide to offset them next time. And in fact, there are an enormous number of offsets readily available. A lot of revenues were left on the table in this package, and there is every opportunity to pay for their extensions. I will just note that people that are saying, oh my gosh, things are sunsetting, are often the same people that supported the 2001 tax cuts and the 2017 tax cuts that expired all of the tax provisions or nearly all of the tax cuts in the case of 2017 for households. So I guess one question
let me get Russ back in here. Russ, I'm never a believer in two wrongs make a right, but there is a point, and I think Democrats make it regularly. They say, well, our program, you may not like our program, but guess what? The Republicans were willing to overspend over here.
Yeah, I think the sheer dishonesty about sunsetting something after 1 year and sunsetting it much closer to the 10-year window needs to be taken into account. But I don't disagree with the notion that we believe, on the basis of the left versus the right, we believe that there's a fundamental difference between policies oriented towards creating economic growth that causes all tides to rise versus individual spending programs that create a drain on the economy, and we treat those things fundamentally different.
Speak to that. Why do you believe this is going to be a drain on the economy? And then I want Sharon to respond.
Right, because you're creating new government programs that are going to have a life of their own. They're going to have a political and economic winners that are created. They're going to come back each and every year to demand that they are paid for. We already had, previously to pandemics, we had structural deficits, $1 trillion as far as the eye could see. So this is on top of that. We're now facing very high inflation, potentially 7% by the end of the year. And this is going to be into the next year. And so in the midst of that debate, we're creating new entitlements.
Are there any investments in this program that you actually support? Meaning, does pre-K do anything for you? Do you say to yourself, you know what, that actually may be better for the country? Do any of the healthcare or Medicare programs do anything for you, or any of the climate elements? No. Is there any piece of this where you say to yourself, you know what, that actually long-term might be the right investment for the country?
No, and the question presupposes that we don't have a massive government as it is. There is a sizable social safety net right now, and we are already providing a very, very healthy amount of support to individuals to get them on their feet. And what's needed is an economy that gets them back to work.
Sharon, final word, 30 seconds.
So look, what he's basically saying is when we do tax cuts for high-income people, that's great for the economy. And when we help people face everyday challenges like unaffordable childcare, not being able to pay for college, and healthcare that's out of reach, that is somehow bad for the economy. If we want an inclusive economy that works for everyone, we have to invest in people, and that doesn't just mean rich people. This bill is going to help people get back to work. It's going to help them afford childcare. Their kids are going to have high-quality pre-K. We're going to help more people get to college, and that is going to expand the pie. It's going to improve our productivity going forward, which, by the way, is anti-inflationary. And it's going to invest in people instead of only investing in high-income people. The very idea that tax cuts for high-income people is somehow a panacea for the country, when really it's leaving people behind, is just not borne out by the facts.
We got to leave the conversation and debate there. I know it'll continue. Sharon and Russ, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
You bet. Back